We shall be discussing lesson 38, Depression, part 2. Our memory verse is taken from Psalm 23, verse 4. Psalm 23, verse 4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Our Bible text is taken from Job chapter 3, verse 23 to 26. Job chapter 3, verses 23 through 26. Why is light given to a man whose way is hid, and whom God hath edged in? For my sighing cometh before I eat, and my roarings are poured out like the waters. For the things which I greatly feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me. I was not in safety, neither had I rest, neither was I quiet, yet trouble came. Depression is misunderstood by many, and it often carries a stigma. It can distort one's perception of reality or make one doubt his or her judgment. And only those who have gone through depression can comprehend how terrible the experience can be. Finding healing is possible, but may take time because it's a chronic illness. Some people may give the wrong advice because they do not understand depression. Therefore, it is important to find out what depression is and what depression is not. So we must find out the truth about depression and tips that can help one to go through successfully, navigate through, and come out stronger and better. We have two outlines. The first outline will be looking at the misconceptions versus the reality. And the second outline, helpful tips for the depressed. Outline 1 will follow a teaching method. And we'll be looking at the misconception. Misconception number 1, depression is not real. The reality is that depression is real. Depression is a mental illness. Depression has to do with neurotransmitters in the brain that is deficient, and anybody can suffer from depression. So the depression has to do with ability of brain to function as it should. The second misconception is that depression is a sin. Sincerely being depressed does not mean you have failed to trust God. Depression, like I said, is a mental illness and not a sin. Anybody can be depressed. Anybody can suffer from non-communicable diseases, including hypertension, diabetes, especially if those things that you are supposed to do, you didn't do. You may suffer it. Misconception number 3. Depression will go away if you pray hard enough or have enough faith. Depression is a serious illness that needs prayer, but prayer enough alone may not be enough. God gave doctors and mental health professionals the understanding and the skill to help those who are suffering from depression or those who have some form of mental challenges or the other. And so, in such a situation, we must seek for their help. God has equip them with enough knowledge and wisdom to manage people and to help people who are suffering from such illnesses. Misconception number 4. Depression is a punishment from God. And people feel that if you feel depressed, it is because you have not confessed your sins. This is very far from the truth. Depression is not the fault of a person who is suffering from it. Anybody will suffer from depression. Sometimes people have family history and they will inherit such diseases, including hypertension, diabetes. So it could also be, it is a trial that can redefine someone's fate, but it is not a punishment for sin. Another misconception is that people with depression are unstable and cannot be trusted with church leadership or responsibility. This is far from the truth. People who have suffered from depression and have received adequate treatment, they function optimally. So depression and other mental illness do not qualify people or disqualify them from leadership or church role, except when they have this severe depression that has not been treated. If the depression has been treated and they are compliant with medication, they can hold any position, both in the secular and even in the spiritual. So the experience can give people compassion or perspective in a way that makes them even good leaders, because they have an idea of what people have gone through, because they have passed through the same route. Number 6 misconception. They say it is shameful to discuss mental illness openly. This is far from the truth. It's the issue of stigma that we are battling with that has made people to hide what they are going through. So the church community should be a safe environment for people to discuss mental health issues without prejudice or any stigma or stereotype. So we must be careful of our attitude to people who have suffered from mental illness. Another misconception is that you can always tell if someone is depressed by outward appearance or action. This is not entirely true. Even though people who are depressed, they may look down, they may have weepy spells, but there are people who have what is also called masked depression. You won't see it on their face. And they are very skilled in hiding it. So some people may also hide it. So you are not likely to tell that somebody is depressed by mere looking at them. There are helpful tips for the depressed. There are some of these helpful tips that if you as a Christian going through depression, or if you know someone who has gone through or is going through depression, they can be of help. The first point is that God cares about your state. Let's look at Hebrews 4:15. Hebrews chapter 4 verse 15. Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 15. For we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. So Jesus cares for us. He's the high priest. There's nothing that we will pass through or we have passed through or we are passing through or that we will pass through that he has not passed through. Even when we are faced with temptation, he will make a way of escape for us. So he cares about our state. Number 2, like biblical patriarch, you are not alone. Look at the account of Jeremiah chapter 20. Jeremiah, the crying prophet. Jeremiah chapter 20 from verse 7. He said, "O Lord, thou hast deceived me, and I was deceived. Thou art stronger than I, and hast prevailed. I am in garrison daily. Everyone mocketh me. For since I spake, I cried out. I cried violence and spoil, because the word of the Lord was made a reproach unto me, and a garrison daily. Then I said, I will not make mention of him, nor speak any more in his name. For his word was in my heart as a burning fire, shut up in my bones, and I was weary with forbearing, and I could not stay. For I heard the defaming of many, fear on every side. Reports say they, when we will report it. All familiar watch for my halting, saying, peradventure he will be enticed, and we shall prevail against him, and we shall take our revenge on him." Clear Jeremiah passed through some challenges, that he felt abandoned. He felt people didn't understand him, and he was a weeping prophet that he had to run away at a time. So, but then we can see that if Jeremiah, revered prophet, will feel this way, any human mortal like us will also go through this same route and feel this way. Number 3, God's love and faithfulness never depend on you. His love for us is solely dependent on His character, grace, and goodness. Lamentation chapter 3, verse 21 to 23. Lamentation chapter 23, from verse 21. It says, "This I recall to my mind, therefore have I hope. It is of the Lord's mercy that we are not consumed, because His compassion faileth not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. No doubt it's by His mercies that we are not consumed." So, God saves us and delivers us. And His love, solely dependent on us. It's just His love that has kept us. And number 4, God saves us and delivers us from afflictions. Psalm 34, verse 18 and 19, especially verse 19, it says, "Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth him out of them all." Afflictions will come, challenges will come, frustrations may come, disappointment may come, but God always delivers His own from them all, provided they remain standing with Him. And that's why Proverbs 24, verse 10 says, "If thou faint in the days of adversity, thy strength is small." Number 5, God can bring good even out of something as bad as depression. God can bring good out of anything, even bad as depression. Romans chapter 8, verse 28. Romans chapter 8, verse 28. "Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress, or persecution or famine, or nakedness, or peril or sword? As it is written, for thy sake we are killed all the day long, and we are counted as sheep for the slaughter. Nay, in all these things we are more than conquerors, through Him that loved us. For I am persuaded that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of Christ." So, what shall separate us? Nothing, nothing. God will bring something out of that bad thing, as bad as depression that you are going through, provided you hold firm to Him. And number 6, there's still hope. There's hope for the depressed. There's hope for the frustrated. Your low thoughts and emotions are not the truth. The truth is that God has a purpose for your life. The truth is that God is aware of all that you are passing through. Romans 8, verse 35 to 39. Romans chapter 8, from verse 35. "Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation, Romans 8, from verse 35. "Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution?" So we are convinced that nothing on earth should separate us from the love of Christ, because He will never leave us nor forsake us. He will always be there for us. And number 7, you can find strength by leaning on the community. A problem shared is half solved. Prayerfully, there's somebody waiting to hear from you. There's somebody you can confide in. There's somebody who has a solution to this problem. Romans chapter 15, verse 1. Romans chapter 15, verse 1. Romans 15, 1. "We then that are strong ought to bear the infirmity of the weak, and not to please ourselves." So there will always be somebody who is strong. And those of us who are strong, those who are going down, rather than mock them, please pull them up, encourage them. So we can find strength when we lean on prayerfully a member of the community that God will lead us to. Number 8, your friends and family can help you by praying and being there for you. So what is our role as a family member, as a friend? Do we pray for people, or do we mock them? Whatever happens to anybody can happen to another person another time. So we must show empathy. We must enter their shoe and come out of it. Not only sympathize and not do anything about it. Number 9, it is not a sin to seek professional help for depression as a Christian. You are not a sinner when you go to the hospital. God has his children all over, and they are there to help. God is the author of knowledge, and he has equipped some people with knowledge. Like Bezalel, who had knowledge into cunning work, God gave him. There are people who have gone through training, who are professionals, psychiatrists, psychiatric nurses, psychologists, who are Christians. You can go to these people for help. Luke chapter 5 verse 31. Luke 5:31. Let's see. And Jesus answering, he said unto them, they that are whole need not a physician, but they that are sick. So when you have a challenge, there's always, it is you who needs help. And when you need help, please don't shy away. Seek appropriate help from the appropriate quarter. Finally, number 10, do not allow anything to separate you. We have read it. What shall separate us from the love of Christ? Is it tribulation? Is it nakedness? Is it persecutions? We read Romans 8, verse 38 to 39, far from verse 35 earlier. So nothing should separate us. Depression should not separate us. Mental illness should not separate us. God will still be God. And with him, nothing is impossible. He still heals and is the same yesterday, today, and forever. With God's love, in conclusion, with God's love and support from the people around you, you can get through and overcome depression. Don't die in silence. Prayerfully look for information and people who can help. A problem shared is at least half solved. There is always solution around the corner if you seek it. And God will never fail. Thank you very, very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Pastor. Good to have you. God bless you, sir.
Thank God.
Thank you for the topic today, depression. I can see that you have presented depression as you have presented it from the manual. Now, let us begin to talk professionally.
Okay.
What is depression to you? How would you describe it?
Depression is actually a mood disorder. Mood has to do with our feelings, whether we are happy or sad. Any good things that happens to us, we feel happy. When the contrary also happens, we feel unhappy.
Okay.
And there are extremes of life. The extreme of unnecessary, undue sadness is depression. The extreme of undue happiness or being over happy, if there's a word like that, is mania. So some people could even oscillate and move from one pole to the other. On one hand is depression, on another hand is mania. But now we are coming back to depression. So when people are so sad as to lose appetite, as to be not interested in anything that ordinarily should have brought or brings pleasure, usually when somebody is feeling so sad as to think of suicide, if I die, will it not be better? When somebody feels so sad that he begins to have regret from things that he or she has done in the past, the individual begins to feel hopeless and he feels worthless. Something is happening, and this is actually a brain problem. There are what is called neurotransmitters in the brain. Neurotransmitters are involved with functions, communications in the brain. When these neurotransmitters are in excess, they are released in excess, something can happen. When they are not released enough, they are deficient, something can also happen. And so in essence, when they are in excess, especially neurotransmitter that is called serotonin, when they are in excess, that is the manic, excess happiness. And when they are deficient, that is when somebody is depressed. And we can see it even from signs and symptoms and from the way the individual will behave. So it's actually a mental illness. It's a non-communicable disease like hypertension, diabetes, asthma. Just for people to know. It's just that it is the misconception and our attitude to things that has to do with the brain that is not correct.
So if we say there are two sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
There is the depression and there is mania. That mania, what does that one do apart from just being happy?
He's happy. He says he's Daddy Gio. He says he's a prophet. He says he's the next president, or even says he's the sitting president. And we all know that how can we have two presidents? And he's happy. He's a jolly good fellow. He's dancing without music. He feels happy as if he has won a lottery, and everybody is pressured speech, and he's jumping from one topic to the other. We don't call it madness. It's a mental illness.
So that one is a mental illness.
But he does everything to the extreme. He can wake up in the middle of the night, and because he's not able to sleep, and he will say, he will now, instead of sitting still, since he wasn't able to sleep, if he's manic, then he may remember that he has not washed his clothes. He may go out in the middle of the night and begin to wash clothes and put it on the line. So we know something is wrong. So sometimes he will wake people who are not sleeping and say, me, I'm not sleeping, you too, you are sleeping. Oh yeah, all of us will wake up there. Such people are manic. And they could share jokes that will laugh with them. They have what is called infectious jollity. If he comes in and begins to say something, people can start laughing. But they will do things on the extreme. Those are the manic people.
So if one is on the depression line, it is bad. If you are on the manic line or mania, that's also bad.
Yeah, it's just the two extremes.
Two extremes. Let me ask this: is it possible to inherit depression? Maybe hereditary?
All non-communicable diseases have genetic predisposition. We look like daddy. We look like mommy. My late dad, I'm like him, and I'm his boy. If you see what happened, my elder brother is fair like mommy. So whatever happens to daddy, whatever has made you to inherit the color of skin from him, sometimes we talk like them, we behave like him, and we say, this is a sheep of the old block. There are genes that regulate and control characters, including illnesses. So if daddy is hypertensive, whatever has made me to inherit the color of skin from him, I may also have inherited the genes that is controlling hypertension, diabetes, mental illness, including depression, including schizophrenia. So we say there could be a genetic predisposition or hereditary, and there are genes that regulate it. If you remember our basic biology.
Okay, somebody asked me a question. The fellow said, if you get born again, the fact that you are born again makes you a new creature. Old things are passed away. Should you still inherit anything that is bad from your parents? Should you still have to pray and say, God, overcome my enemies for me? Once you are born again, all the enemies should go, and then you should not even inherit all those.
Knowledge is power. Look at Exodus chapter 20. I can't remember the verse. It says, the iniquity of the fathers will be visited upon the son. And when we got to Ezekiel chapter 18, it says the soul that sinneth shall die. So it depends on the side that you belong. The truth is, for instance, somebody lived with an old woman, and the old woman left a will. He wrote a will, and every property was bequeathed to this person. And after they died, the person began to cry and say, these people, they are so wicked. He didn't give me anything except this piece of paper. And he handed that piece of paper to somebody who is learned. And the person looks at it, and he saw that it was a will, and that everything they had was bequeathed to it. Where am I going? We know in part, we prophesy in part. There are principles in life that governs everything. Principles, including spirituality, including physical things, including things that have to do with health. People say they are born again. They are not following divine principles. He says he's born again, he has become a new creature. Fasting and prayer was declared, he will not join. He doesn't attend midweek services, he doesn't come. In terms of his health, he's not paying attention to his health. When he's supposed to sleep well, he's not sleeping well. Whoever has a risk factor, it's just like saying a doctor cannot commit suicide. Why not? If anybody that has a risk factor, those things that those who committed suicide did, if you do the same, you will have. Those things that those who developed depression did, or what they should do that they didn't do, if you as a believer also do the same. Look at non-communicable diseases, hypertension for instance, weight loss, weight gain, obesity, your body mass index, what is called BMI, is high, excessive salt, sedentary lifestyle. God has blessed you. If I get to the office, I'll park my car. Wherever I'm going, I'm trekking around, I'm moving around. Those are the risk factors, sedentary lifestyle, what we eat. People are eating junks. Those are what predispose them to developing hypertension, even if they are a believer. The same thing for all illnesses that are non-communicable diseases.
Yes,
that's the truth.
There's a question from Precious Pupola. Over spirituality was mentioned as coping mechanism. How is that? That some people, the way they show the way you will know they are depressed is they just become excessive spirituality. They become spiritual excessive.
Normally when there are problems, there are coping styles that people have. Some people's coping style is the use of alcohol. Forget your sorrow. Some people who are believers, some of their coping style is to go into denial and begin to over spiritualize things. That's what they are talking about. In terms of, look, he gives sleep to the eyes of his beloved. Psalm 127 verse 2. You are not able to sleep. 1 week, 2nd week, 3rd week, 4th week, and you are still just sprawling and rolling on the bed, and you are saying that I don't have any problem. You are saying God will heal me. You are over spiritualizing it. Steps that you should take, God will not take it for you. That is the aspect of over spirituality. They confess positive, but then things that have brought this illness in the first case, they have not done anything about it. So that's the over spirituality that we are talking about. When you don't confront a problem headlong, there's a problem, we see that there's a problem and you do something about it. Beyond just saying that you want to pray or you want to pray about it. Even your prayer is not even prayer, they pray in faith. It doesn't honor God. Sometimes people have just turned God to a magician. He doesn't pay tithe, he doesn't do all this spiritual exercise. It is when there is problem that he now says he has faith.
To God.
Those are some of the issues.
Well, there's another question saying, is depression spiritual?
Depression is not spiritual. It's a misconception. Depression is a non-communicable mental illness that has to do with the brain, that has to do with neurotransmission in the brain, that has to do with what is called neurotransmitters, some substances that are released in the brain, whether they are in excess or not. And you could have some genetic predisposition, maybe somebody have it in the family. There might also be issue of social problem. Somebody failed an exam. People have raised hope. I could recall while we were still not the doctor yet. As soon as you have started studying medicine, they are calling you at home. Doctor, 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 doctor. There is a friend of mine who couldn't make it in the medical school. And he and his father fell apart just because he couldn't pass that exam to cross to clinical. So people have failed the exam and committed suicide because they become depressed. So exit event, somebody dies suddenly, especially the breadwinner, and now there's nobody to assist. People will promise heaven and heart, and when the thing comes, that's when they will remember that their own son is still in secondary school. These ones have gained admission. He has passed JAMB, he has got 300 and something. He's the same one that promised that don't worry, I'm going to assist you. So life issues, life event, including whether positive or negative. Somebody who is married is when you are married that you now have in-laws. When your in-law dies, you have to be responsible. Sometimes some people lose job.
And those ones are not necessarily spiritual.
So They are not necessarily spiritual. And if he doesn't do something about it and get enough support, he may start thinking about it, lose sleep, and become depressed. So there are many issues that could lead to depression that is not spiritual.
Sir, this topic has generated a lot of reactions.
Expectedly.
Sincerely, we have so many questions that some of them, let me ask you this one. This person is saying, can there be a spell? Somebody will cast a spell on a person, and as a result of that spell, the fellow will fall into depression. Like they have casted a spell on a man, and that man begins to misbehave, and then is depressed. Another person is saying, can somebody be depressed to the extent of being admitted to the hospital? There
are levels of depression. They are severe. We talk about mild, moderate, and severe. If it's mild, maybe he has loss of appetite, and sometimes he's still able to function, but deep down, something is wrong. If it's severe, it's a bit more symptoms. He may have more symptoms, feeling hopeless, feeling worthless, regret from some of those things he has done in the past. But when it is severe, thoughts of suicide will come. I wish I had not done this. Maybe let me just kill myself. So maybe for us to know that in fact, depression is the #1 cause of suicide. And for every 40 seconds all over the world, somebody is committing suicide. As we are talking now, somebody is dying. And for a single suicide that you see, there are 10 other suicides that is not reported. For every suicidal attempt, somebody tried to take sniper and they caught him or one way or the other. There are 20 other attempts that we are not familiar with. But the truth is it's depression that is the #1 cause. And that's why we must tackle it headlong.
So can it be as a result of a spell?
No. No. We have said basically it has to do with neurotransmitters in the brain.
And the fellow can be admitted in the hospital.
If it is severe, it may require admission. If somebody has attempted suicide, definitely you can't manage that one at home.
And you have said there are mild cases.
If somebody has lost weight and is not eating and is losing weight, you need to rehydrate and bring that person to the hospital. You may need admission.
Now, I want to cite this example. If somebody enters this room and begins to smile, the person is just smiling. It can rub on all of us and we just look at him and smile. In the case of the social media, can social media cause depression? Because the way we see people, obituaries, young people dying, 40, age 35, they just say gone too soon. And when you open your Facebook, you see like 5 obituaries of young people. Can that transfer?
Everybody has an innate mechanism for resilience. Every individual, inborn, that God created us to manage stress, to be productive. And that is what mental health is all about. If what people are seeing in the social media is what is making them to break down, fundamentally something is wrong with them.
Oh.
You should read. You know what is good for you, you know what is not good for you. You should know that you should not enter a pornography site. When it pops up to you, you run away. You should know that this is not good for you, and if somebody dies, and so what? In fact, you should be concerned with is this person going to heaven or not? If that is your concern, I don't think you'll be depressed because of that. We must have this ability, which is called resilience, to be able to manage, just like an elastic. When you pull it, it's supposed to return back, even for whatever negative thing you see. Even in a scene of an accident that is a ghastly accident, you will still not remember again, except that it comes like a flash. But not that you are not having nightmares and it's coming every day. Even those who have depression could be having nightmares also.
A woman has issue with her husband and it is becoming unresolvable. She wants to leave the man. The church is saying she should not leave. She wants to separate. The church is saying she should keep praying for the man. Now, she says it is now affecting her mentally. How do we advise? What advice do we give to her?
I'm not sure they got the position of the church right. God is divorce. God is putting away. Malachi 2:16. The Bible was what we read in Open Heaven today. God and the church is not against separation when life is at stake. If this man is domestic violence, spousal abuse, your life is at stake, this man wants to kill you, no pastor, no church will ask you to remain there. It's just that when you leave, you cannot go and remarry as long as that man is alive. So nothing stops this person. If you are convinced that, look, your life is at stake, you are at risk of dying, you can separate, but be sure that you want to manage yourself alone in terms of economic stability, whatever. You must also think about the children. So looking at the pros and cons, then the decision will be yours. The church can come in terms of counseling you, making you to know the implication that, look, oh, if you go on your own now, it means that this man may not take care of the children for you. But then between taking care of the children or dying, choose one. So, and I think it will better that this person excuse herself from this relationship and continues to pray, not praying when this man is assaulting. So I don't think there will be anything against separation.
Okay, she should stay safe.
Yes, you stay safe.
Keep praying.
Self-preservation is number one. That's what is called moral reflex. If you carry a day-old child and throw the baby up, it will do like this. And that's why when anybody wants to fall, Obama dura.
Yes.
You would fall in such a way as to minimize, and that is self-preservation. That is number one for everybody, that the mental faculty is functioning.
Sir, what did you call that? Moral reflex?
Moral reflex.
Moral reflex.
M-O-R-O.
Okay. A lady says she was almost raped by a man. She reported the man, a church member, to the church. The church did not punish the man. So she cannot forgive the man. She cannot forgive the church. She cannot forget the event. What would you advise her?
The church has not handled the case well. That's the truth.
That's what
the first thing they need to do is they should have investigated. Between the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, the Bible says the truth shall be established. After the investigation, if it is true that this man attempted to rape, then that man must be punished. And if for any reason they didn't punish after they have investigated and they saw that the man is liable, then the church have not done well. That is on one side. On the second side, whether it is true, whether the church now investigated or not, when she observed this, did she escalate it? Thank God in the Redeemed Christian Church of God, we have pastors in charge of parishes. We have pastors in charge of area, pastors in charge of zone. You can always take your case to a higher authority. And if you are sure of what you are dealing with and you are sure of your facts, removing the issue of being shy or stigma or what people will say, and you are so convinced that this man did this. Is this person married or single? If he's married, definitely the husband too must be part of it. They must escalate and take this issue higher. If they have done so, I'm sure somebody right there will still have done the right thing. Forgiving and forgetting is another entirely different matter. Everybody must forgive, for heaven's sake. If she's serious about getting to heaven, she must forgive. Thank God it's rape, attempted, it didn't succeed. What about those armed robbers who armed robbers came into the house and they raped the poor girl, and she even got pregnant in the process? Big life story, it has happened. So she has to forgive, to move on. Jesus spoke about forgiving 70 times, 7 times. So he has to forgive. She has to forgive. If she's evil-minded, forgiving and forgetting, there are two different kettles of fish. You can forgive, but you may not forget. But then what the teaching is that when you say you are forgiving somebody and you still feel pained about it many years later, you have not forgiven that person. If you are forgiving, you will still see, you will remember, but you won't feel anything again. Especially when God has helped you, that the event has now overtaken you. Somebody said, oh, this person did this person did this, and you lost some things. Later to discover that, look, God has restored to you, and you still see that person and you are still getting angry. It means you didn't forgive. If you are forgiving, you won't feel angry again. It's your response later that will show whether you have forgiven the person. But in terms of forgetting, you will always remember.
Okay, sir. Let's see how many questions how more questions we can take. Let me read them out. Is depression demonic? You have answered that. Can a believer be a victim of depression?
I've said it. A believer can have now. He's behaving like an unbeliever.
And this
he's
one,
doing whatever the believer, an unbeliever will do. He's disobedient. He has a family history, and he's not done anything separate or different from the people in the family. He's going to church, he doesn't obey God. How will God wash his back?
How can you counsel a victim of depression who is not speaking out, or who does not acknowledge that he is depressed, and he has gotten to the extent of losing his job?
Take the person to see professionals.
Even
if it's by force.
Take the person
you
to see
you are
professionals.
helping this person.
How can you avoid, as a believer, how can you avoid becoming depressed? You have answered that. How can I prevent or handle disappointment from people I trust, especially when they are my people in the Lord? Another one, how is spirituality okay? Is there lack of God's power in the church? Why should we say somebody is going to church too much, or is showing over spirituality, and that one cannot heal him? Why can that one?
The man that was born blind. The man that was born blind. Were they not asking who sinned? Was it him or the parents? And Jesus said neither. Whether people perceive it is half full, half empty. The power of God, power like a phone, is still available. But what's our attitude? Do people serve God? Are we not serving God for what we want to gain? Are people really sold out? Agabus prophesied, he said, this man that holds this cloth, where he's going, they will put him in prison, they will do this. And what did Paul say? Paul said he's not only willing to go there, but he's willing to die. Do we have such? They stoned Stephen. Paul, Saul of Tarsus, was there, and he was urging them on. Later, God touched him. So there's nothing our God cannot do. It's just that, what is our motive even today for serving God? Why do people go for vigil? It's because they perceive somebody is pursuing them. Why do people go to some people serve God? Why are we finding it difficult to obey God on simple things? Do this, do this. Vision 2032. How many people come? How many people go out for evangelism? How many people obey God? How many people come for midweek services? How many people pay their tithe? How many people honor God? Have you noticed that anytime that the Jew is praying at Monday Thanksgiving, they will pray for those who obey God in tithes and first fruits? How many? Please, are there no pastors who don't obey God? At the end of the day, when something happens to them, they will say God is not faithful.
So what about this one who says, how can he forgive those people he trusts so much. How should he handle them? He has trusted them.
If he's going to heaven, if he's heaven-minded, he will forgive them. If he's finding it difficult to forgive them, you can go through counseling. There are Christian psychologists that can take you to what is called psychological debriefing.
I am really hoping that we'll get to that level, but time is really not on our side. What are the adverse effects of drugs that are supposed to help depressive people? If there are adverse effects, what are the corresponding antidotes?
There is no drug that doesn't have side effects, including water.
Water?
Yes. There could be water intoxication if you take water too much, even though how many people take water too much. So there is no drug without side effects. Some side effects is even positive for some people. Some drugs may make you sleep excessively, and those ones will be good for those who are having poor sleep.
Okay.
Some drug may make them to lose libido, poor libido. It does happen. But then, for every of those complaints that you have with medication, go back to the professionals. There's always an alternative. If they need to swap or change the drug for another that has less side effect, they will do so.
Okay, how can one forget a very ugly past? I think you have mentioned that just forgive the person.
You just forgive, you don't forget.
How can one who has been mentally abused from a young age be free? What is the best way to relate with a mentally unstable person?
The person will not keep quiet. You must seek help. You must look. Some of those things that have happened when people are young and they have bottled it up, it will still wait for them in future. They need somebody to sit them down, share their feelings. Christian counseling, Christian psychiatrists, Christian psychologists will take them to what is called psychological debriefing. They are feeling like this. Why? We trace it to the back, to the past, and begin to take them through sessions.
Do we have them in Nigeria?
They are everywhere. Why would they? They are in the church.
People going for counseling, especially
they are in the church. It's just that people don't come out.
No, I mean psychologists.
Yes, now they are in the church.
Oh.
The Redeemed Christian Church of God that has everything. Networking. I can tell you there are psychologists, psychiatrists everywhere.
So how do we
even the MD in Yaba, even the MD in Harvard, they are psychiatrists and they are members of the Redeemed Christian Church of God.
How do we relate with an unstable person mentally? A mentally unstable person. Can depression make you look older than your real age?
The first thing is you must be empathetic and sympathetic towards that individual
who is mentally.
Yes, you know these things. It's an illness. What's your attitude? Are you stigmatizing such individual? Yoruba will say "Tento de lari aumentiti embo." That is? It is the one that we can see now. We don't know what will happen tomorrow.
That person.
There are people who are saying today who, for one reason or the other, something may happen much later in future, and they may also go down. There are people who also develop mental related problem in old age. Some people develop dementia, degenerative changes in the brain, and they can have catastrophic reaction. They can also have double depression, dementia plus depression together. So anything could happen to anybody. We are the mercy of our God. That's why we must serve Him the best. The body is so intricate that anything could go wrong, both to the brain, to any organ in the body. That's why we must be artists. We must always serve Him so that He can wash our back. Remember, there is no hammer to wash our back. It's only Him that can help us.
So can depression make somebody look older than his age?
Mental illness generally, if not properly managed or not managed, or they are carrying them to alternative health care to look for help where help does not exist, coupled with the frustration that people go through, coupled with maybe medicating symptoms with alcohol, those maladaptive things could make people to grow older than they are.
And finally, we thank God. Is it possible to come out of depression if her husband is constantly abusing her emotionally? somebody is asking, is it possible for her? If her
You can't
husband
come out if she's not doing anything about it. Your husband is abusing her emotionally. Cry out now. Cry out for her. There's always help somewhere. Go to mommy pastor. Confide in her. Mommy will tell daddy. They will invite him. If they need professional counseling, for all you care, sometimes those who are abusing, they themselves have suffered, they are a product of abuse by their parents. And sometimes some of those things they do is just that they don't have a choice. But most of the time in our own culture and environment, people tend to be a bit secretive and people don't want to say something. Somebody say, if I tell them now, some pastor will be saying it on the pulpit. My wife will say, whether he said it or not, was that problem solved? Yes, if it was solved, then it means what's the big deal? Even though in terms of ethics, the pastor should not support.
How do you expect a man who is being beaten, usually beaten by his wife, to go to the pastor and say that my wife is beating me?
Let him swallow it.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much. And what's your parting word for people who are depressed and people who are not depressed?
Depression is real. It's a disease. Seek help. But God is ever faithful. He is Jehovah Rapha. He can heal. With him, nothing shall be impossible.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you very much. We have had the pleasure of our pastor, who is a chief consultant with the Neuropsychiatric Hospital in Aru, Abeokuta. He has done justice to all our questions. Thank you so much once again, sir.
Thank God,
God
sir.
bless you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for the invitation.
You're welcome, sir.
I'm glad.
Thank you.